Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you how to make this beautiful sunset from polymer clay. I call it the Bob Ross sunset because it was inspired by a method that I learned from him. Like in some episodes, he would start with a dark canvas, a black canvas. I'll put a link in the descriptions below. Like he would sit in his black studio in front of a black canvas, and then he starts adding white into the wet black paint, and all of a sudden these beautiful pastel colors appear. So I wanted to try something similar in polymer clay. And the trick is actually that we'll start, like Bob, with this very dark color here. That looks almost black, but in fact 2/3 of this color is pure red. You don't see the red here because it's all covered up by black, but once you start mixing this with white, it will reveal all these beautiful subtle undertones. I thought it was nice to stick to this method, and actually it applies to other colors as well. Like here I was doing it with red, and here I was doing the same thing with green and black. So in each case, you will get these beautiful, soft, natural looking colors that are perfect for an evening sky. And this painting was done in the exact same way as this one. In both cases, I was using the Mokume Gane technique to create the clouds. And I was using this technique a little bit differently. So I'm actually still in the middle of testing and trying out things. But I already wanted to put the tutorial out there and make my idea available to you, so you can also play around with it and develop something. And let's stay tuned and work on this together. So today we're gonna make this painting here, and I wanted to start by giving you a quick overview of my tools and materials that I use. With our painting today, we want to go to the maximum of what fits inside our oven. This is a tray from my oven, so that's the maximum size I can do. And I'll use this for baking together with a strong piece of cardboard that I cut to size. This is a very heavy, strong, smooth cardboard, and it's perfect for baking because we're going to bake our painting face down. There might be air trapped inside the clay, and during baking this air comes to the surface and it forms a bubble. And we don't want these bubbles on our painting, but rather on the back. That's why we're baking it upside down. But then this surface here, it becomes very important because the clay will take the texture from here. This is a very nice smooth paper-like texture. I don't recommend actual paper, thin paper, because it will wrinkle, and then you have the wrinkles imprinted in your clay. And also I don't recommend super smooth materials like ceramic tiles or metal. They will work in many cases, but for us we might get a problem because the clay sticks to it in some areas, and then some areas are shiny and some are not, and it creates this sort of patchwork on the surface. And usually you can sand that off easily, but our painting, we don't want to sand it because the layers of clay are very thin and they will come off when sanding. So instead we want to get the perfect smooth surface right out of the oven with this cardboard. And then I was getting a bigger wax paper because my usual wax paper, it's a bit too small. And also I got a bigger plastic from the roll. There's so many different types of plastic. Most of them will work, some don't because they react badly to the clay, so you might want to test your plastic. I want to recommend this one type that I use, which is called cellophane. And it's perfectly clear, and it doesn't create wrinkles or bubbles, and the best thing is it's biodegradable because it's not actually plastic, it's made out of wood fibers like paper too. And then for smaller sheets I'm still using these plastic sleeves like a lot of people do. You know, you cut away this side, and then you can open it and put your sheet inside. So that's basically all we need to go big. Other than that, we're just using our standard tools. So let's have a look at the clay and colors we're going to use today. Our whole color scheme is based around this one color that is a mix of black and red. Maybe 20 to 50% of it is black. And I mixed this with a lot of white, 20 parts for my lightest tone, and then I defined a mid-tone, which is this one plus 5 parts white. And then we have one other color, this very saturated orange, and I'm blending it with a mid-tone, so all these are the same. And all my blends are 10 centimeters wide. This is 10 by 10, this is 10 by 14, and this is 10 by 16. Plus this one is a double layer, 0, which is the thickest level of my machine. And these are single layers. And each blend has an offset on either side, so they will go into the machine in this direction. So I was mixing these blends, and I was doing it carefully so that my sheets don't lose their shape. They're still 10 centimeters wide. And from this sheet I will cut off a piece that's the same size as this one. So let's say here. And this whole thing is a bit less than half of my entire sheet. And these two, we will use them later as a base for our Mokume Gane. And these two, we'll use them for the layering. And we want to invert them. So I will roll it up into a stop in this direction and then compress it that way. So I made it very flat and into a block of 10 centimeter width, and now it can go into my machine on a level 0, and we will get a sheet that has the same size as before. And I'll do the same with this one. So here's our two inverted blends, and we're going to use them for the layering. And these two other sheets, we'll use them as a background of our sky. And here I had a little corner missing, so I was patching it up with some of that lightest color because we want these sheets to be nice and rectangular and to have the same size, because we're gonna join them together like this. And then here I will join some more of that pure solid dark color, and this is already going to be our sky. So actually here we are defining the proportions and also the size of our painting. If you want to change this, now is the moment. But for us it's fine, because when you look at this format we want to do, it has a nice height. It will leave enough room here for a nice foreground. And the width, they all have the same width, but it's much less than our painting. Less than half actually. And this is because we're going to stretch these sheets individually in our machine. And that's also why we're doing this sky in sections. So each section is short enough so it can still fit inside the machine in this direction. There's one last thing missing in our background, which is the sun. And I'll make the sun from this orange clay. You could also add a bit of white to make it even brighter, but I'll use this orange. And here I made a stack, and this is 2 layers 0 like these ones, plus a thin level 8. And from this stack I will cut my sun with a round cutter, and actually this circle here, it's much smaller than I want my sun to be in the final painting. It's maybe half the diameter, because now I will run this through my machine on a level 0 and stretch it. And it will look like this. And now I will insert this sun into my sheet, and then later I will stretch it together with this sheet in the other direction, so hopefully it will be round again. And you know, you can position it where you want. I'll put it somewhere here just above the horizon, a little bit off center, maybe like that. Be careful that it's straight in this direction, that we want to stretch it later. And here I make sure that these two pieces are really connected firmly, so that it doesn't come apart when stretching later. And now we want to layer our clouds onto this. And we'll do that with the inverted blends, and I made them on a level 6, both of them, because that's the maximum layer we want to add. So I'll start with this piece. And I will layer it with this dark blend, and I'll have the dark color touching, so the light color is facing to the top, and I'll patch this together to save some of my blend. And then I'll use my roller to get all the air out and to connect these two sheets firmly. And I'll trim off the excess. And then for this section here, we want to add a bit of orange. And I'll connect these two blends first, again with the same color touching, this light color. I made this sheet a little bit smaller because now we're gonna run it through the machine on a 6 and it's gonna be stretched. And I'll layer it on top here again with the dark side facing down. Now for this last piece, we're gonna layer our dark blend onto here, and we also want to add a bit of orange, but not everywhere, because we want to create a sort of circular shine around our sun. So I cut this circle. And I will layer it onto this blend again with the same color touching. And then I'll run this whole thing again through the machine on level 6, and here we gotta be careful because it's like not an even thickness. So it might get a bit messy like it did here, but that's okay. And now we can layer this onto this sheet, but here it's important to have you know, the orange on top of our sun, so I will turn this around like that, so the sun is here and our orange is on this side, and I'll layer it on top like that. So we turn it around. This time the dark side is facing up. And now we have all our sheets prepared. Let's put them together how it was, like this. This is the back side now, and then we'll turn it around like that. And now we can make our clouds by printing into this sheet and then shaving off the surface layer, which is the Mokume Gane technique. And we're doing like stripes of clouds that run across the sky. So I'll do one here just above the horizon and also covering my sun. Here's my sun. And then I'll do one here, then I leave a gap. I'll do one here, I leave a gap again, I do one here, and here's again a gap, and then I'll do some more clouds here. And for the printing, we want something rather big. I was making a quick tool here, and this is just a ball of scrap clay that I baked, so it's hard. And it's irregular, so it has like a pointy side here, and it has a more flat side here, so I can use it to make different sizes of prints. So these prints are quite random, really, and now we're gonna do the shaving on each piece individually. I was adding some linear prints here also with a silicone spatula tool that you use for baking normally. So let's see what that does. And I'm resting the whole thing on my glass surface so it won't move. And then I'm shaving off very, very thin layers with a tissue blade, and I'm holding it flat and bending a little bit, and I'm shaving in this direction across the sky parallel to my horizon. So as you could see, I was working very slowly and I was shaving off only very thin layers, but I kept on doing it until in most parts our top layer is actually removed. So I was shaving deep enough to get to the underlying blend, especially on this side and on this side. We don't want any clouds. Instead we want the pure color of our blend here. So I'll do the same with the other two sheets. And it turned out quite nicely, I think. I mean, you got different parameters here. The way you do your printing, the shapes you're printing, the way you do your shaving. So there's lots of options you can play around with, and eventually it could look even more like clouds. But this is perfectly fine because the stretching is going to do the rest. And for the stretching, first of all, I'll make this edge here clean, because otherwise these cracks will open even more when stretching. So we want a straight edge here, a clean edge. And then I'll back each sheet up with some scrap clay, and I'll use a thin layer first, a level 8, very thin layer, and I'll run it through the machine on a level 0 to make the whole thing flat, because these sheets are not flat now. And then I'll back it up with another layer 0 of scrap clay, and then I can stretch it to my final width on a level 0. I mean, of course you can stretch it more or less as you like. It's just important to have it on a level 0 in the end, because that's a good overall thickness for painting. And you know, they're wide, but that's good because then we can move them around a little bit to match them up how we want it, and in the end we're going to trim it on the side. So I'll put it together now, and I got some few cracks here still, so I will cut those away, or we could also cover it up with some of our premix color. But I think here, you know, I have a big gap between these clouds. Anyways, I will cut this a little bit shorter, maybe here, and the same on the horizon. I will make it a bit more tight, start from here. So here I also added a foreground, which is just a simple blend that I made from a bullseye cane. And now I'm gonna cover the whole piece with this plastic that I was showing you before to protect it. And now I can take my time and keep on working on this piece and add other elements, like for instance this cactus here. This cactus, I bought it on Etsy from a shop called ikandiclay. It's a great shop. I'll put a link in the descriptions below. And it comes as a cane set, so you have separate canes for all these elements, and then you can combine it to make your own cactus. So I prepared this one already, and obviously the canes are a lot smaller, but as much as you can reduce a cane, you can also blow it up. And I do that with individual slices. I cut a slice that's a little bit thicker, like maybe 3 millimeters, and then I run it through the machine and stretch it in different directions. And then I back it up with scrap clay, like we did with our sky, and stretch it even more. And in the end, I'll make sure it has a level 0, like also my painting. And I put it in this sleeve that I was showing you before, and like this I can move it around here easily and position it where I want. And when I found the perfect position, I can fix this with some Scotch tape, and then I can cut through my plastic and through the sheet to insert my cactus here. So I was adding my other elements down here, and I was also adding some more of that pure dark color here on top. Plus, I don't know if you noticed, I did flip around this sheet in the end. I turned it 180 degrees. And then I was cropping my whole painting. And now the last thing we want to do is giving it a good rub to unify the surface. So I already removed my plastic, and then I will cover it with a sheet of wax paper. And I will rub through this wax paper with my rubbing tool, which is just a hard object with a smooth, slightly curved surface. And I am putting a lot of pressure, especially here where my seams are, to fully close them and erase them. And also I'm rubbing over the entire surface in rather large strokes. And then we're going to remove this paper carefully by pulling it to the back. And this is really the last thing you should do before baking, because now we have the perfect smooth surface. So I'm not going to touch it anymore, and instead it can go directly on our baking cardboard. So I'll position it in the middle, and then I have another sheet of cardboard on the back, so I can flip it around like that. And then we'll remove the paper here. And now it's ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I hope you got inspired to play around with this. And as always, I'm super curious to get your feedback and see your results. So please leave a comment, send me photos, let me know what you're working on. And thanks for watching.